Hi, this is Bob from Hobbyconcepts, and today I'm going to build this Tamiya racing truck. Now Tamiya makes a line of 1/14 scale race trucks. They're scaled the same as their traditional semi-trucks, but they're full racing chassis. They're cute little trucks. I wanted to build one for a flatbed load for my semi, and so today we're going to put this together. It is a hoot to build. Really cute. Lots of stickers, but really fun. Pretty simple, straightforward kit. Let's get started. All right, so for something a little different, we'll do this this Fat Fox 1/14 scale racing truck. I've wanted to do one of these for a long time. So we've got incredible decal sheet, of course, to my instructions, and then the lexan body parts. Now those are pretty complicated. There's a bunch of cutting and several different parts, so we'll kind of go through doing that, and that'll be kind of fun. And then let's see here, the rest of the parts are all typical Tamiya parts trees. Oh, nice looking tires, nice tread on those. This is not a total scale truck per se, it's a racing truck, but I think we're going to kind of scale it up a little bit. And oh, they've got a separate instruction sheet just for the body set and one for the chassis. Okay, that makes sense because this chassis they use probably on RC cars and everything else. The reason the truck's 1/14, of course, it's a 10th scale car chassis. When you put a semi-truck on it, that actually scales it down. Got a comes with a speed control, so we use that. And there's the hardware bag. It also comes with a Tamiya torque tuned motor, which is one of their better motors. So we'll use that too. Probably add some lights. We'll see about a driver figure and maybe some other little details. So let me unpack this, get the little nuts and bolts in my muffin tin, and we'll see what we got. Now I've decided to start with the body, mainly because I can be painting and it can be drying while I'm building the chassis. So the first thing to do is to cut out all these pieces, and there's quite a few. These are the mud flaps, the coupler, the cab, the rear part of the cab, and then the chassis, and they all need to be cut out. Now, they're covered with a protective film, so what I'm going to do is use my curved tip lexan scissors and cut these all out, and then I will wash them with dish soap and water, and then we'll start looking at painting them. And there's 3 different colors: white, a kind of a metallic blue, and then black. So I'll have to paint it in 3 different stages, but I think it should go together pretty well. Basically on these I just start looking at this right here, and this part just cuts out. So I'll just start by making big cuts and get the piece out, and then trim it small with my scissors. So moving on to the chassis, it's typical to me instructions by bag A, B, C, and so on, with full-size drawings on the parts. Now since I've never built one of these before, I'm kind of using these to identify which part is which to make sure I got the right ones, and they look good. The only thing is, obviously, if you guys know me, this plastic bushing is going in the garbage can, and it's going to get a 5x11 ball bearing. So it looks like we just slide the ball bearing on here. We slide the spacer on, but they do want a little bit of ceramic grease on the face of it. So we'll do that. this pin goes through here. You can see that. And then this has slots that fit on the pin and goes into that plastic bushing. And then it drops into the chassis back here. I might need to go in there first and then drop through. Get the pin lined up. Okay, so that sits in there like that. That's pretty good. And then this drive shaft, I gotta grease the other end here. Just is gonna that in there. Have to wiggle this up and down to get it in, but I think I can get it. There we go. Okay, step one, not bad. The motor mount's next, pretty straightforward. It comes with a 19-tooth gear, and the instructions show if you're using a 19-tooth gear to use the top and the bottom holes here. So I already put some Loctite on the motor. We're gonna put the spacer on here. And then it looks like we can, I'm going to put the gear on first because I don't know if I'll be able to get in there and reach it afterwards. And they want it 15 millimeters up. Looks good. And then the motor is just going to drop on here with a couple of these 3x6 screws. Alright, takes care of that assembly. Now it's time to drop the motor in. The motor mount just fits into a slot here and drops in just like that. You can see the gears work good. We'll add a little Tamiya grease to them. And then this cover just screws down over the top to hold everything down. You'll also notice I installed these two pins which have a screw in the bottom that hold them on. Alright, 4 screws hold this down. I'll screw this together and we'll move on to the diffs. Well, the diffs look absolutely familiar. So we'll just put a little grease on this thing here. Drop it in. More grease on it. This is the ooey gooey part, but grease in there already. I'll put a little more grease on it. Drop this on. Alright, and then this just fits on here. It has some alignment pins. Hold it like that, and 3 screws hold it together. Diff assembly is easy. Except that my fingers get greasy, so it's hard to hold tools. Okay, well, I'll add those other 2 screws. You'll notice I like using this thick grease inside the diffs, and of course the Tamiya ceramic grease on the outside. So, time to drop in this diff, and a couple things. First off, they have you sliding a plastic bearing on the shafting here first. We're going to use of course, a sealed ball bearing. And then on the diff itself, they want you to use these sintered bronze bushings and grease them first, but we are also going to replace those with ball bearings, so we don't need to grease them. So those can go in the garbage can. Then this gear has a flat spot that matches up in here. You know what, that's kind of buried in there, so I think we're going to put a little grease on it first. Get that down in there. Yep, looks good. This kit just falls together. Okay, how's that feel? Feels good. All right. Now we've got to put some parts on here and kind of keep that in place. The next step involves putting on the rear suspension arms, and they give you 2 possible ways to do it, short wheelbase or long wheelbase. So I've been pouring through the instructions, pouring through these, pouring through everything to see which way the truck is set up, and there is nothing in the instructions I can find. So finally I found on the outside of the box it says you can set up the wheelbase to either 251 or 257, and then on the front right here the wheelbase says 257. So little detective work, we're going to set it up at 257, which is the suspension arm sloping back. So in real life what that means is when we put this on, we're going to put it on this direction so it slopes backwards, and then this drops on here, and this one will go on this direction so it slopes backwards. So I'm going to grease those up, and then this goes on and captures it, and there's another piece that goes on here and captures it and gets all those suspension arms put together. So I'll go ahead and assemble that. I've got this stuck together, so now it's time to assemble these, and that's pretty straightforward. They just get a couple of bearings, again using ball bearings instead of the plastic bushings. Get in there, and then it gets one of these short joint cups. Axles, I mean, one of these axles, and then this plate just mounts like this, and it's held in with three screws here and 2 screws here. I'll get that put together and we'll look at these axles. This is pretty straightforward. This just mounts in here, out of the way, and then the dog bone, we just grease it up a little bit. healthy looking dog bone. And then they use these screws with the tapping thread here to hold this on. And I already put the other side together, so voila. There's our rear suspension. I'll go ahead and mount this plate too, and then we'll look at the other end. So time to look at the front end. The first thing is to prep these suspension arms, and there's just a little ball that snaps in here, and the way I do it is I put a little grease on it and then just snap it in with the handle of my screwdriver and then turn it so that the hole is there. And then the differential is exactly the same as the rear. So we're gonna slide a bearing in, we're gonna slide the gear in, and then we're gonna slide the diff in, and then we're going to install these exactly the same as the rear and put the cover on. So I'll get all that put together. Well, I got the differential in, suspension's working, so there's really two other things to do, and that's the shocks and the steering arms. So I left one shock here to assemble, and this shock top has a hole in it here. Okay, and then this has a pin that snaps into the hole here. And there's a flanged edge at the bottom that goes down. And then this ring drops on, a spring drops on. And then this goes in. And you have to push it down and turn it. And that locks it so it's straight ahead. So that's the shock. And then it just holds on with a couple of these step screws. Really, this thing goes together so easy. Like that. And then one down here at the bottom. Okay, so there we've got our suspension, and then the steering arm just has a couple bushings that snap in, and these are a plastic part. And one of these step screws go through. Now there's two different heights here. We put it in the taller one. Okay, and then there's a, find it here, a threaded Allen wrench, or Allen screw, and it just screws down in here, and they want you to leave 5 millimeters proud of the surface, so that down in here, zero this, we'll get 5 millimeters on there. good. Then this just drops over, there's that little stainless steel, pushing the threads onto that. And this drops over it. And then the step screw holds this to the back of the knuckle. I'll tighten that down in a minute, but you can see the effect on this side. So that is how that works. I'll get that assembled and then we'll take a look at the rest. So we're at the point in the build where we need a radio. So I've got this this Fly Sky GT3B that I thought would be a good radio to put in this. Semi-truck builds, I'm always using stick radios, but racing truck, get a wheel radio. And then I've got this high-tech HS5645 Metal Gear digital servo that's high speed and high torque and should be a pretty good match for the car. So I will put some batteries in this and we will pop the servo in. I plugged in a battery in a servo just to test the radio, and it's obviously working. It's a pretty nice radio. I haven't used it before, but it looks pretty good. So now what I'm going to do is install the components on the servo. Tamiya has their typical servo saver setup, but I might even look at replacing that with just a solid aluminum horn. Since I've got these heavy-duty servo with the metal gears, the servo saver is not as important, and I can get rid of the slop. So I might try it. I'm going to put it together and see how it all fits. But it looks pretty straightforward, and I did need to have the servo hooked up to a radio so I can make sure it's centered. So my steering arm would be something like this. And that's as close as I'm going to, oh, they want it this direction. Okay, so somewhere in there is my arm. So I'm gonna try that first and see if it works. So my aluminum steering arm is going to work fine. This just connects the steering arms together, and the servo will sit in here, and I'll just bolt on the steering arm. Now, since the hole in here is bigger, and this uses a 2mm threaded screw, I'm going to have to make a spacer. I'll just cut some pieces of brass tubing to fit in here to space it out. And these mounts for the servo have an offset hole, and you can turn them around either direction to get the servo in and out correctly. So this works out great. It'll fit fine. Just make those little spacers, and away I go with the steering. So I will go ahead and do that. I made my little spacer, and the steering works fine. I have to reverse it. But the servo seems pretty solid in there. And the other thing I like to do with all my kits is test them with a single D battery. And so it works fine. I want to make sure there's no drag, and if it runs good on a single D battery, then you probably put it together right. So now it's just a couple of simple add-on parts. Let's see here. Yeah, the only real part left is this backbone. Let's just take a quick look at it. And it looks like this just goes something like this. And that's why we didn't put screws in those that hold the back end of the suspension. So yeah, that's just going to screw in there. I'm going to take my receiver and double sticky tape it down in here. won't need a, so it'll just double sticky tape here. I'll put this backbone on here. There is a plate to protect the motor, which I may or may not put on, and then it's tires and wheels, which I will talk about in a minute. One thing worth mentioning are these front body mounts. You have to take this mount and cut it off so there's only 2 holes in it, and then this slides onto it, and we use a body clip to hold it. And then it mounts up in the truck like this to give it enough height to fit the body. So I'll do both of those. You can see that I've mounted the speed control, the on-off switch for the speed control, the radio receiver here, and plugged in the wiring. So, and then bolted down this backbone. So that really kind of completes the chassis. Just a few things left to hook up. Interesting speed control because it looks like you can use it either with brushed or brushless motors. And so I have it hooked up for a brushed motor. And yeah, so finish up this and then it's time for tires and wheels. So these are the stock tires and wheels, and I just glued them up. They don't have inserts. They're nice and soft. I'm sure they're very grippy. I wanted something that looked a little different. So I found these aluminum rims on eBay, and they came with directional tires with foam inserts that also I think are going to be quite grippy. And then I found these simulated brake discs. So just thought this truck needed a little extra pizzazz that way. And they fit just completely on the stock hexes. And I think they'll look great with the body. These brake discs look kind of cool in there. So I do believe that is the end of the chassis build. I'll put a piece of black tape on this to hold it down, and then we'll see what it looks like with the body on it. Well, I've got all my body parts cut out, and I washed them with dish soap and water and let them dry. So now I'm ready to paint them. So I'm going to paint it pretty much just like the painting guide. So for example, this is blue and white. And so the very first thing, now these have a film on the outside to protect them. You paint the inside. First thing I'm going to do is put these window masks on. And then on this body, I'm going to mask off the areas that I want to be white, and then I'll paint the blue. These mud flaps are just black, so I'll go ahead and paint those. And then I'll mask off the back bulkhead, and it's blue, white, and black. And then the body itself is blue, white, and black. So I'll show you the masking things that I do. So first the windows. So here's the paints I'm going to use: PS59 dark metallic blue, PS5 black, and PS1 white. The PS is Tamiya's designation for paints for polycarbonate, which paint on the inside. So this is simple. These are just black. I'll spray them, and when they're done, I'll just peel off the outer coating. You can see I masked off the upper body, so the windows are masked off, and they'll stay masked off. Right now I'm going to paint the blue, and when that's done, I'll peel off the tape and paint the white. And this one I masked off, and I'll paint the blue. Then when I'm done, I'll peel this off and paint the black, and then peel the rest off and paint the white. So I'm going to go ahead and paint these, and then we'll look at the body. Well, you can see I've masked off what I'm going to have painted black here, and so I'll go ahead and spray that. I sprayed the fenders, and then I sprayed the blue on here. So now, since I sprayed the blue, there's a small area down here that's going to be black. So I'm going to mask that off, and I'll spray that when I spray this. while I'm in the middle of painting and waiting for paint to dry, I'd really like to have a driver figure, so I found this Tamiya Street Rider kit, which is a slightly different scale. It's 12th instead of 14th, but it's got a nice helmet and a good face, and I think some arms I can chop up. So I'm going to put this together, maybe do a few little mods on it, and just see kind of what I can make out of it for a driver. Beautiful kit. But they've got a couple different helmet variations. We'll go with this helmet. We'll put the torso together, maybe bend the arms. I'll play with it a little bit. Here's my driver stuck together. I'll saw him off somewhere around here, and there's the helmet. And at least I've got something in there, and it'll look, I think, pretty good. Should fit in there pretty nice. So we're working on him. You can see that I've got these pieces painted, and now I can peel off the outer layer here, which then makes it look really nice. Now you can see I got a little overspray here. I'm going to show you how to fix that. There's a lot of stickers for this truck, so that's going to take a while, but yeah, look at how beautiful that paint is. Yeah, it looks really nice. There's all kinds of little things to do. And I'll show some of my sticker techniques, but yeah, that looks great. So this is going to mount here, stick on, and there's stickers and some bolts that hold it together. So we'll take a look at that in a little while and see what it looks like without the. Always something so satisfying about pulling off tape. Yeah, that looks really good. To me, it suggests painting this smoke, but I want to leave it clear since I'm going to put a driver figure in there, and there's a lot of stickers that go around that. So, yeah, turned out good. So I've got my major components painted here. A little dust on it from me sanding this figure, but I've got my driver figure kind of organized here. I haven't painted him yet, and I sanded him to be about the right height, and looks pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and paint that driver and put these pieces together and kind of get that part of it done. So that'll take me a few minutes. Well, I've got my driver figure painted, and I glued him down with E6000 glue. So now I'm just going to let this dry overnight, and we'll put it together, and then we'll start doing the decals. Very happy with how that turned out. It's not the most spectacular interior driver ever, but you know, it looks nice to have a driver in there. So we'll let it dry, and then we'll start stickering. So my driver figure is solid, got everything painted. I drilled some holes and popped the mirrors on. I also drilled holes down here on the body and up here. Back in the back of the instructions, they say optionally you can put some bolts and nuts on, along with the double sticky tape to hold everything together. So now I'm going to use double sticky tape, put this down, bolt the cab. So I'll stick this down, bolt the cab, and bolt this back plate on, and then I'll be ready to start with decals. And there I've got my body assembled. You can see I put screws in these two locations and then up here. and everything else is taped. So now it's time to start looking at these decals, and there are 3 sheets of amazing stickers. Now, the way I do stickers is I cut them out with an X-Acto knife. So I always put a brand new blade in, very sharp blade, and then now let's just do one here. We'll do this one. I find it gives me a nicer edge. Scissors kind of leave a roll up, and then this has got some little like rivets on the edge of the sticker here. So there's my sticker. Now, this particular one is number 12. We'll just double check, but I think it's, yeah, it's this back here. So it goes back here. And typically, lay on like that. So there's sticker number 1. I continue to work away on decaling this thing. There are a lot of decals. But I just thought I'd show something, because you may have noticed some of my paint lines didn't line up and everything, but Tamiya does a great job of decaling to cover joint lines. Let me show you what I mean by that. I've got this decal here ready to pull off. And you can see that the blue line here and the blue line here don't line up. But the decal, when you apply it properly around the window, makes it line up. Covers everything. So, you know, if there's a little, like right here, there's some overspray. But there's going to be a decal that covers that. So I'm not terribly worried about it, and if I get to the point where there's something that isn't covered up, I can just cut a little bit of white decal film or blue decal film off of an extra decal and go to work on it. So I will continue decaling away. Wow, that was a lot of sticker work. And I thought NASCAR had a lot of stickers. Little did I know. There's about 100 stickers on here. It looks really good though. It turned out great. I didn't have any big issues. The stickers all went on just great. Most of them are flat. And yeah, so now the only thing left to do are these fenders bolt up underneath here, the 2 bolts. And the 5th wheel coupler bolts on here. So I'll go ahead and bolt those on and just double check my trimming and make sure everything's right, but it looks pretty good, and then we'll get on to the final assembly. I bolted on the rear fenders and the coupler, and the body is done. It really turned out nice. Now the chassis, then just, let's see here, pops up through the mounts and sits on there like that. Looks really good. I'm going to clip these off so they don't stick up as high, and we'll use some body pins. Those wheels look good with this truck. Yeah, I'll clip those off, throw a battery in it, and come back and we'll do some final shots of it. All right, so there's our finished product. It is a cute little truck. Now, I thought of this as a load for a lowboy trailer behind a Tamiya semi, and it looks great with the Tamiya semi trucks. It's the right scale. It makes a really neat load, but also runs really good. It's quite fast. I can't even hardly run it on my bench at all because it's too quick. But yeah, it looks good. It was fun. It's fun to build. Something a little different, and like I said, a great load for a semi truck. Or hey, if you're into little racing trucks, this thing's awesome. So really, the only mods were a driver figure and these aluminum wheels and directional tires with foam inserts. Other than that, it's completely stock, and it just took me 2 days. Boy, a lot of stickers though, man. Stickers. But yeah, fun little truck. So there you go. Give me a thumbs up. Like this video. It helps with the YouTube rankings. Subscribe to the channel. Normally we don't do this. We're doing more semi-truck stuff, but you got to have a diversion every once in a while. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.